Hi there, my name is Justin Lehmiller, author of the blog Sex and Psychology and the book Tell Me What You Want, and today I am going to be answering your sex questions. Specifically, I've pulled together a list of 10 questions submitted to me by readers of the blog, and what I'm going to do is go through them one by one and tell you what the science really says about each of them. These questions cover a wide range of topics, so you're going to learn about a lot of different things today. So let's go ahead and dive right in. Question number 1, is it true that men think about sex every 7 seconds? This one is easy. No. And if men really did think about sex every 7 seconds, they wouldn't really have time to think about much else. The truth of the matter and what the research actually shows is that men think about sex about twice per hour on average. And we know this from a study in which college students were given tally counters to carry around with them all day, which are basically the things that bouncers use when they're keeping track of how many people are going in to a nightclub or bar. And basically the students would click this tally counter every time they had a sexual thought. So what they found for the college-age men was that it was about once every 30 minutes on average, and for college-age women it was about once an hour. So a far cry from every 7 seconds. Question number 2. Do any of those natural male enhancement things actually work? Well, this is one of those it depends answers. It depends on which product it is that you're talking about. The vast majority of these natural male enhancement products don't work in the sense that they don't have scientific data behind them backing it up, saying that they do what the claims on the bottles say they are supposed to be doing. There are some substances, though, that do seem to have effects, and there is scientific data backing them up. And one of them is something called Korean red ginseng. This is an herb that has effects that are actually quite similar to the effects caused by Viagra, in the sense that it can cause men to have firmer and longer lasting erections. So that's one of those natural male enhancement products where there is some supporting data. However, if you're thinking about using any of those products, definitely do your research and homework to make sure that what you think you're getting is what you're actually getting, and also to ensure that there is supporting data behind it that back up the claims that are being made about it. Question number 3, how does sexual activity relate to happiness? Well, what we see in the data is that there is a positive correlation between sex and happiness, basically meaning that as sex goes up, happiness tends to go up as well. However, that's only true to a point. What the data suggest is that sex and happiness are only related up until about once per week. So when people are having sex once per week, and they start having sex beyond that, it doesn't seem to make them any happier. So there's this leveling off point there. So people who are having sex once per week aren't necessarily any less happy than people who are doing it, say, once per day. So there's definitely a link there, but it's not quite as direct and straightforward as you might have expected. Question number 4, what is it about masochism that enhances sexual pleasure? So masochism, in case you're not familiar with it, is basically when people are receiving pain during sexual activity and deriving sexual pleasure from it. So what is it about pain that some people find to be sexually arousing? So the predominant theory there is basically that when people experience the sensation of pain, that it brings them into the here and now. It creates this sort of state of mindfulness, and it allows them to focus on the physical sensations that they're experiencing, and it can allow them to experience those sensations more intensely than they otherwise would, because they're not stuck in their heads and they're not getting distracted by anxieties and insecurities and so forth. So what's appealing about masochism to many people is simply the fact that it brings people into the here and now and gets them out of their heads and allows them to relax and enjoy sex in a way that they might not otherwise enjoy it. Question number 5, can someone really be bisexual? Yes. Bisexuality, I wish I didn't have to say this in 2018, but it is indeed a thing. And there's a lot of research finding that bisexuality is a legitimate, distinct sexual orientation. So for example, when you look at sexual arousal patterns of bisexual men compared to gay identified and straight identified men, you see that they do show high levels of genital arousal to both male and female sexual stimuli. So bisexuality in both men and women is a distinct and unique sexual orientation. So let's stop asking that question. Question number 6, is it safe to have sex on the beach? Or is it a good idea to have sex on the beach, I think is what this question is asking. And Let me back up for a minute and say that sex on the beach is actually a very popular sexual fantasy. And in fact, when I surveyed more than 4,000 Americans about their sexual fantasies for my book, Tell Me What You Want, I found that the beach was one of the most popular locations that people fantasized about having sex in. Now, when you look at people who have acted on those fantasies, what you find is that a lot of them say that the fantasy was better than the reality, and the issue really seems to be sand that kind of gets in the way and interferes with the pleasure and enjoyment that people have when it comes to actually having sex on the beach. So that's what I can tell you about that. Question 7. Why are people more horny when they're drunk? Well, that's because alcohol is an aphrodisiac, and when people consume it, particularly in small doses, it tends to increase sexual desire and sexual arousal. Now, there is a dosage effect when it comes to alcohol, such that if people consume too much, then it actually has a depressing effect on our sexual response systems. So men who get very inebriated, for example, will have difficulties maintaining an erection, and men and women who drink a lot may find that it's much harder for them to reach orgasm. It takes a longer time, or maybe it doesn't happen at all. So alcohol is one of those things where it may be an aphrodisiac in small quantities, but it can actually be harmful to sexual performance if consumed in large quantities. Question number 8. Is it true that sperm whitens your teeth? Not sure where that question came from, but the answer to that one is easy. No. There's no data that I'm aware of that suggests that semen is a tooth whitener. So I would recommend getting some white strips instead if you're concerned about whitening your teeth. Question number 9. Do studies show that people in committed relationships enjoy sex more? In other words, do they have better sex? I've actually conducted some research on this that I published a few years ago, where I compared people in friends with benefits relationships to people who were in committed romantic relationships. And one of the things I did was compare their levels of sexual satisfaction. And what I found was that people who were in romantic relationships reported being more sexually satisfied on average than people in friends with benefits relationships. However, the difference in sexual satisfaction levels was pretty small. And on average, everyone was pretty highly satisfied. So yes, people in romantic relationships seem to be a little bit more satisfied, but the difference is small. I think the difference exists, though, because people in romantic relationships tend to have better levels of sexual communication. They talk about sex more. They talk about their desires more than people who are in casual situations. And so as a result of that, it would make sense that levels of satisfaction are going to be at least a little bit higher. And finally, question number 10. What is the best sexual position for a heterosexual woman to reach orgasm? So what the research shows is that there is at least one position that is linked to higher odds of female orgasm and also simultaneous orgasm as well during penile vaginal intercourse. And this is a position known as the coital alignment technique, or CAT for short. And basically it's a modified missionary position where the male partner leans further forward when he's on top of the female partner, and the base of his penis comes into contact with the clitoris. And basically, instead of having a thrusting piston-like motion, the partners will rock their bodies back and forth. So it's this very coordinated sexual act that maintains a constant penile clitoral connection. And as a result of providing that higher level of clitoral stimulation, it results in greater odds of female orgasm and simultaneous orgasm. So if you want to learn more about the coital alignment technique or about any of the questions that I answered here today, check out the blog at sexandpsychology.com. I have lots of data and resources available there for everything that we talked about. Just use the search function to find what you're looking for. Be sure to follow the blog regularly for updates on the latest sex research, and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to keep up. Also, please check out my book, Tell Me What You Want, if you want to learn more about the science of sexual fantasies and how you can use this science to potentially improve your own sex life. So thanks for watching, and until next time.